smell that.
They grabbed a decade of decadence by the tail.
I drank a lot before, during, and after.
And gnawed their way into hairband history.
I mean, we all pretty much were Elvis and John Wayne with guitars on them.
In the 1980s, Ratt sold millions of records and bagged almost as many female fans.
It was unbelievable.
I'm sure I stuck my out too many times.
I walked in one day and said, you know, this place smells like a boat.
Now with never-before-seen footage.
Yeah. I wasted last night. Threw up in the ashtray.
And exclusive outtakes.
I'm feeling unbalanced out there.
Witness a hard-working rock band's hedonistic heights.
Panties and bras and sex toys hanging from the ceiling.
And horrific lows.
I opened the door, and there's Robin with a bottle of vodka upside down, just bubbling up.
And in one of the last interviews with Doom guitarist Robin Crosby, revisit the moments where it all went tragically wrong.
I certainly handed over my life to the devil.
I think he thought he was invincible.
It's time to go round and round with Ratt.
We realized that, you know, we probably really don't like each other very much.
Here's Bobby bumming out.
This is the story behind the music.
Everybody was on their own planet, and there was no coming back.
Come on, buddy.
That was a hot show.
It was 1984, the year of the Ratt, when a hungry pack of hard rockers exploded out of Hollywood and became princes of the pop metal revolution.
What would I do to meet Stephen Pearcy? Just about anything.
You'd just get loads of everything, you know, party paycheck.
I mean, it was comical. There were bras and panties everywhere you looked.
I'm gonna go get me some tail.
I mean, it was all out all the time.
Uh-oh, I'd be like, party tonight!
Ratt hooked millions of fans with their hedonistic brand of heavy rock and turned all of America into a personal playground.
Can anybody give me a drink? There's a lot of weed smoking. People would snort blow on the bus, would all, you know, snort and drink.
I woke up in the morning, I'm still flat on my back. Couldn't move a muscle like I had a heart attack.
We got to the point where I would walk into the dressing room. Hi, Juan. Look around, see how much Jack Daniels was gone, see how many empty Budweiser cans were laying around, and how many roaches were laying in the ashtrays, and I'd have a pretty good idea about what kind of show we were going to have. Okay, let's go.
Not long after taking it to the limit, Ratt went over the edge. And in a bleary procession of backstage parties, no one was hitting it harder than guitarist Robin Crosby.
Quitting heroin is like quitting breathing when you're addicted.
In an exclusive 1999 interview with Behind the Music, Crosby spoke about his life in Ratt and the addictions that turned his world upside down.
There's no just walking away from it. I wish to God I had any idea what I was dealing with.
Robin Crosby's addiction and his problems not only affected Robin Crosby, but they brought about the demise of Ratt. No doubt about it. They were instrumental in our demise.
Ratt's sordid tale begins in the early 70s in San Diego, California, where a hot-wired team named Stephen Pearcy was dreaming about a life in the fast lane.
I was a pretty rambunctious freak, you know, as a kid, like trouble. Since I can remember, I've always wanted to drive race cars, dragsters, funny cars, anything fast.
In July of 1974, when Stephen was 15, a tragic accident nearly took his life and put the brakes on his racing career for good.
I was just on a bike hauling ass, and a moving pile of steel ran me over. Luckily, you know, it just broke the legs, but it was a process. It took years to get back to normal.
As he recovered, Stephen discovered the rush of rock.
Good rock shows would come around. Like in one show would have like ZZ Top, Aerosmith, and Foghat thrown in or something, you know, so you get your bucks with them. So I was out constantly seeing these bands, you know, with a pocket full of weed, a pack of papers, you know, a bit of acid, and you're off and running, you know.
By the mid-1970s, Stephen was fronting the popular San Diego band Mickey Ratt. And partying with fellow musicians like guitarist Robin Crosby. Tawny Katane was Robin's girlfriend at the time.
Yeah, I'll be done in just a second. And puts the joint down and just starts playing. That's what they all did every day.
We'd go to his place and play guitars and hang around. And yeah, we got into serious some pot smoking and recreational drug use. Yeah.
Stephen was happy to see his band filling San Diego ballrooms until he and Robin took a fateful field trip to L.A. to see a new band called Van Halen.
They were playing like they were in an arena, you know. Ed would be slamming himself against his cabs, and Dave would be just a freak, you know, and it was just, oh, man.
That first night, it was like, you know, there's nothing like that going on in San Diego.
So I knew we had to get up there to Los Angeles.
By the fall of 1981, Stephen had shortened his group's name to Ratt and had recruited Robin Crosby and another San Diego guitarist, an 18-year-old whiz kid named Warren DeMartini.
He's like, hey, you want to come up to L.A. and play in Ratt? I'm like, yeah, maybe, let me finish out this semester, and maybe I can switch schools and come up there. And he's like, no, dude, you got to come up tonight.
And he just never left. Came up and never went home.
Ratt was filled out by bassist Juan Crucier and drummer Bobby Blotzer. And within a few months, the group was making a name for itself with roundhouse hooks and a seductive style that lured the ladies.
Everybody in L.A. is all, hell-bent for leather. And we knew we didn't want to alienate the girls, right?
Put on more makeup. That's right.
Let's fashion rock, fashion metal. Early Ratt cards would say fashion rock.
We wanted to entertain you, and we wanted to look like rock stars.
They were dressed a little differently than everybody else. Their hair was perfect.
We weren't New York Dolls or Motley Crue. We were Elvis and John Wayne with guitars on.
And when the shows were over, Ratt raised hell in Hollywood.
Hello? What are you guys doing?
The parties usually started and ended at their squalid one-bedroom apartment known as Ratt Mansion West.
The Ratt Mansion West epitomized the spinal tapness of rock and roll for us.
Hey, man. So wasted last night. Threw up in the ashtray.
When all the bars closed, it seemed like that's when everybody would come over.
And Stephen would always have this round of girls that were bringing food, cases of beer, bottle of Jack, and provide rides, wherever you needed.
This girl is sleazy.
Really, whatever you need, if you know what I'm saying. I mean, for the life of me, if I were living in that complex, I would have been calling the police every other day, you know?
In the summer of 1982, Motley Crue hit the big time. Soon, record labels were scouring the Strip in search of the new crew. But while scores of big-haired bands landed deals, Ratt was left without a nibble.
It was sort of becoming like, wow, is anybody gonna sort of bite on this? You know.
Why aren't we signed? You know, we're a good musical band. We can play, you know, and we've got good songs.
In the fall of '82, Ratt finally found a believer in indie label owner Marshall Burrell.
Not only did I see 5 great-looking guys that were really into style, they were good songwriters. They had great hooks, had great songs, and that really turned me on.
Burrell signed the band to his Time Coast Records label. And in May 1983, Ratt and Roll was unleashed with a 6-track EP.
It blew my mind. It was like, what is this? Literally, every song was killer.
That EP was selling a lot of copies. So all the labels that were, you know, saying you to Ratt before, now were coming to the table.
Still, months went by without a major label closing the deal. So in July of '83, Burrell arranged a showcase for the band at LA's Beverly Theater.
I had this feeling that was kind of the last chance, because I think most other labels had seen this already. And it was, I remember the feeling going on stage for that gig was that it's this or nothing.
We know you guys from Hollywood, you know, you kind of like check things out just a little bit, right? Before you it, right?
And that night, the president from Atlantic Records came backstage and said, "How would you like to be with us?" And we were like, that's good enough for Led Zeppelin and the Rolling Stones. I think it's good enough for us, you know.
What's the intro you're gonna do, Robert?
In the fall of '83, Ratt began recording their major label debut. They'd soon be the toast of pop metal, but their hits would come with a hellacious hangover.
You better take with your eyes.
Next, non-stop partying puts the hurt on Ratt.
The line was getting blurred from the after-gig celebration to an all-day routine.
When Behind the Music continues. After years in the rock trenches, Ratt had the tightest riffs and the biggest hair of any band on the Sunset Strip. In the fall of 1983, they finally entered the studio to record their debut album, accompanied, as always, by a horde of women.
Good night. See you next week. A brand new show, kids.
I think the ladies were always a distraction. A serious distraction.
I'm gonna go get me some tail.
And there were a couple times where we'd be working on vocals, and it would be like, "Where's Stephen?"
Split or something? I don't know. I thought he was here. Where's he?
There were a couple of times when I was privy to some pretty exciting moments with Stephen and whoever the Mrs. Pearcy of the day was.
I'm sure I stuck my out too many times, but you know what? Hey, whatever.
As the sessions wound down, the band found itself short of songs. So bassist Juan Crucier quickly penned 2 new tracks, including the blistering screed, Lack of Communication. But when Stephen Pearcy laid down the vocals, his tweaks to the tune were less than welcome.
Stephen was deviating away from the lyrics, and it didn't make sense, and it wasn't helping the song. In fact, it was making the song almost not make sense.
Back on!
I go, but if I can't deliver it and get off on it, I have to do something with it.
He was a lead singer, and in his opinion, what he sang was strictly up to him, and he took the lyrics and tore them up in my face and threw them in the trash can. At that point, I knew that him and I were going to have problems. big problems.
Despite their troubles, Ratt screamed out of the cellar with their debut album in March of 1984. The record quickly crawled into millions of homes thanks to the pop-friendly single Round and Round, in a video that made Ratt stand out in a crowded rock pack.
Marshall took it upon himself to say to the group, well, listen, we need maybe sort of a little bit of a comedy factor.
Yeah, this room is so small, I put a key in a locker, broke a window.
I went to my uncle, Milton Berle.
I'm giving you a space so you can cut back and forth. Okay. I know exactly what I'm doing.
And told him that I had an idea about a video.
Wait a minute, wait till I get concentrated.
MTV had just started really taking off. When the video came out and started getting heavy rotation on MTV, and then the album went platinum within 10 or 20 weeks.
Then all of a sudden we had some semis and staging, and we were out headlining arenas.
You hear the angels singing, and there it is, the arena with your name, Lutz, and 20,000 people to see you that night.
I have a special message from Atlantic Records for Ratt. Congratulations! Your album has just sold 1,500,000 records!
As the crowds grew bigger, so did Ratt's unique tour bus collection, made up of souvenirs taken from female fans in each city.
Started looking like a lingerie store or something.
It looked good and occasionally smelled great.
So I walked in one day and said, you know, this place smells like a boat.
After about 3 weeks of panties and bras and sex toys hanging from the ceiling, that thing started to smell bad. It was funky.
By January of 1985, the tour bus was in a garage, and the band was back in the studio recording their sophomore album. But from the beginning, the sessions were marred by creative clashes with producer Beau Hill.
My job was to make the record, keep things moving forward, stay under budget. So, yes, I would employ anything at my disposal to try to accomplish those tasks.
Wait a minute, Bob. Do you want me to do the low one there, or just?
Yeah, try that.
Lay it down, lay it down.
No problem.
He would overdub things in the studio without our approval or consent, and he even got to the point where he said, I brought in a lead guitar player to play this part. And I thought, you mean you brought someone else in to play Warren DeMartini's part? Are you insane?
Ratt spent 2 tense months trapped in the studio. But in July of 1985, Invasion of Your Privacy hit store shelves, and the Rat Pack was able to take their 3-ring circus back on the road. Their mission was to deliver the biggest hits and hottest licks in all of rock.
From out of the cellar, this is something we call Wanted Man!
I always wanted to put on the best show I could ever put on for each audience in every city. So knowing how difficult it is to maintain a strong level of performance from day to day on the road, most of the moves that I would do were repeated every night.
We would always think Juan totally was overdoing everything. You know, we had all these names for his moves. We had the gyrocopter, the dive bomber, the spinning top, the Wanderland, wandering around, where am I, kind of.
Funniest one was the one where you flip the bass all the way around your body, you know? And this one night, the bass just came off and just flew over the drums and just, like, almost out of the arena. It sounded like someone picked up the building and dropped it down.
The shows lasted only a few hours, but the party never ended. Especially for lead singer Stephen Pearcy.
My vice was having the good champagne, too much Jack, tequila, whatever floated the boat, right?
The line was getting blurred from, sort of the celebration, the after-gig celebration to just it being a routine, an all-day routine.
I drank a lot before, during, and after.
And everybody had a bit of their own rock star mode thing going. The lead singers tend to take it above everybody else. I think they call it LSD, lead singer's disease, baby.
The problem was that when you forget what city you're in...
Happy New Year, Tokyo!
And you're in, let's say, Kansas City, and you yell out something like, "Good evening, Denver." I mean, it's horrible. And everybody's looking at you like, you don't even know what town you're in, buddy.
Playing tonight at the Meadowlands.
Even writing them down for me didn't work. So eventually I just stopped. I just said, hey, how the you doing?
Once we started saying, hey, look, why don't we chill out the partying and make sure that we just, do things in the appropriate manner? That's when sort of things just started drifting apart.
Ratt members focused their frustration on their stubborn singer, little realizing that rhythm guitarist Robin Crosby was slipping into an abyss of his own. Next, Robin loses control of his addiction.
Get up for the show, get up in the middle of the show, and get up after the show.
When Behind the Music continues. By the end of 1985, Ratt had amassed millions of followers with their hook-heavy headbanging and live shows that were nothing short of incendiary.
They had like the full stage production, the drum solo with the six-pack of beer coming down from the rafters, and Blott's out there cheering the crowd on. Just really gave it their all, vocally, musically. Just bare knuckles out there really doing it as a live band.
But despite the band's onstage skills, tensions within the group slowly turned their concerts into battlefields.
There was a lot of discontent with the performances. Bobby would try to work with Stephen on maybe having a couple things to say in between the songs. Bobby sort of became Stephen's little critic.
Don't snarl.
And Stephen would get frustrated.
Shut up, man. I can't be creative.
And Bobby would get upset, and spit flew through the air, some nasty vibes.
Rock and roll is a dangerous profession. It's probably, on a per capita basis, the most dangerous profession in the world.
As Stephen and Bobby fought it out in full view of their fans, another drama was unfolding within the band. More and more, Robin Crosby was being overshadowed by Warren DeMartini, who'd emerged as a full-blown guitar god.
Warren was really sort of what I call their Joe Perry. He'd be just kind of looking cool and playing and rocking, but he definitely was their musical sort of guitar hero backbone.
Sometimes, there were moments of difficulties when I would have to say, Robin, look, I just don't think it's happening. Let's let Warren do this. And he would sometimes agree, and sometimes he would not so agree.
I went from being like the leader of the band, my nickname was King. Everybody looked at me for everything. What do we do now? To a lot of feelings, and I never understood why.
Humiliated by his diminishing role, Robin secretly nursed his broken ego with copious amounts of drugs and alcohol.
Robin was starting to pull away from the band.
Robin just opened a beer.
Hey. Robin had always felt like Warren and him were a team, and he felt like he was sort of getting demoted, and that's where a lot of the problems became evident.
I got to the point where I was doing a lot of drugs. It was like, get up for the show, you know, get up in the middle of the show and get up after the show. I'm feeling off balance out there.
Band morale was at an all-time low when Ratt reported to the studio to record their third album in the spring of '86. When they weren't clashing with each other, they were beefing with producer Beau Hill.
The priority was on delivering the product on time as opposed to delivering an amazing record. And that was part of the problem that became unbearable with Beau Hill. It was just like, wait a minute, you know, do we have to rush through this again? Can't we just take a little time and maybe refine these songs a little better?
I mean, it was a triage ward. You know, it was like, pull out all the stops. You've got to get this thing done. Clock is running. Figure it out.
With time running out, Ratt felt caught in a trap. Making matters worse, Stephen Pearcy was virtually invisible during the studio sessions.
He would come down and record a cassette of the music, go back to his house and write. We didn't know what he was writing, melody, you know, it was not very cool.
They were always like, where is he? He's never at rehearsals. He's never here. I'm writing songs. I can't write songs around people telling me what to write.
Released in September 1986, Dancing Undercover would go platinum. Still, Ratt soon found its popularity under siege by a new band called Guns N' Roses, and all hair bands began losing their hold on the public.
Out of the Cellar was a 3 million seller, and then everything from there on out was less and less.
All of a sudden, you know, the pretty boys and the spandex, you know, that wasn't cool anymore. It was sort of cool to be like a bad boy and a little nasty and a little bit of an ass. I mean, all the bands changed their image after Guns.
Cecil B. DeMille.
With sales slipping, Ratt sought a sonic makeover with former Queen producer Mike Stone. In the summer of '88, they began work on their fourth album, but Ratt's brawling and Stone's boozing turned the Reach for the Sky sessions into a disaster.
This guy's got a serious drinking issue, and it could quite possibly be affecting our record.
And we heard those tracks, we were mortified.
Mike says to me, I've got to send Atlantic some DAT tapes. I said, well, you better stall them. You better not send them this. I mean, or, you know, something's going to hit the fan.
Atlantic president Doug Morris was tormented by the tapes and quickly enlisted Beau Hill to salvage the project.
I got a call from Doug, and he said, I just listened to the roughs of Ratt. I said, oh, well, what'd you think? He said, they sounded like a horrible Holiday Inn band, was his exact quote.
It was painfully difficult to work with Beau Hill at that point. But we needed the vocals to get done. They got done. We delivered the record. And guess what? It sounded just like all the other Ratt records.
Next, a Ratt and Roll empire comes undone.
If one guy can actually say, oh, he had it together, they're fully because everybody was up in one way or another.
When Behind the Music continues. Ratt rolled through the 1980s with a vengeance, piling up 4 platinum albums and filling arenas around the globe.
You don't know what you got till it's already gone. It's how it's gone as you can get.
But few of their fans knew that by the end of the decade, Ratt was crippled by severe inner turmoil, or that guitarist Robin Crosby had descended into a heroin-fueled hell.
I don't think of myself as a fool or an idiot, but I certainly handed over my life to the devil. Really.
Robin hid his drug addiction very well. There were times when I would be walking through the restroom in our dressing rooms, and I'd smell vomit. And I'd be going, man, you know, who keeps getting sick in our dressing rooms? You know, it's Robin getting sick.
I think he thought he was invincible and that I can do this a couple of times and nothing's gonna happen to me. I'm king. I'm Superman. I mean, the guy was 6'4", blonde hair like this, and absolutely gorgeous.
Just gonna go through here and check.
Wait until tomorrow.
I know, you're gonna be more beautiful than you were.
Get better looking every day.
That's right. Look at that mug, folks.
And it ended up being the demise of him.
If you've never done heroin, there's nothing like it. Once I found that feeling, that was it. It was over. You win.
Robin was able to hide his habit for years, but by the spring of 1990, he'd become enslaved by his addiction.
The most striking thing was it was really starting to interfere with his playing. It was getting to be something that he wasn't able to conceal anymore.
You know, at video shoots, we'd be collecting, you know, guns and needles.
We're scared and sad.
You hear about what people go through or what it does to people. I just, you know, it'll never happen to me. You know, I was different. I was special, and that'll never happen. Well, it did in a big way.
In the summer of 1990, Robin went into rehab, while Ratt recorded their 5th album, Detonator. That fall, he rejoined Ratt for a tour of Japan.
Isn't this fun being on tour again?
But it quickly became apparent that drug abuse had brought the towering guitarist to his knees.
And at one point, one of my security people come into the dressing room and say to me, "Hey, Robin's drinking again, buddy." And he's across the hallway in one of the storage rooms, guzzling vodka right now. So I walk out of our dressing room into the storage room. I open the door, and there's Robin with a bottle of vodka upside down, just bubbling up. And he sets it down, and I couldn't even say anything. I just closed the door.
Later that night on stage at Tokyo's Sun Plaza, Robin's complete collapse became painfully clear. It was the last show he would ever play with the band.
Halfway through the set, we're doing our guitar changes.
Grabbed the wrong guitar, so he was playing, and it's like playing a completely different tuned guitar, you know?
It just sounded like, you know, the end of the world.
And I turn around and I look at Warren and Stephen and Bobby, and they're all looking over at Robin. And I look at the audience, and everyone in the audience is looking at Robin. So at one point, the whole arena, including the band, is looking at Robin. And that's when I knew that if something didn't change, it was the end of Ratt for Robin.
I felt terrible at the time. Felt like I was messing up, you know, my baby. Because it was my baby, you know, Stephen and mine and Warren's dream.
The band recruited former Scorpions guitarist Michael Schenker to replace Robin, who was sent back to the U.S. for another round of rehab.
We were sort of scared because we didn't know what to say to him, and we didn't know how to help him.
That was kind of the thing where we thought, we need to do this for his own good. It didn't, you know, help things. It got worse after that.
The band stayed on the road, but their brand of hair metal was suddenly obliterated by the revolutionary riffs of grunge rock. By the time the tour hit the States, Ratt's concert devotees were dwindling by the hour.
Hey, we're all the people. You know,
we're pulling in 5, 6, 7,000 people in these 13, 15,000 seat arenas, which was starting to really wear on everybody.
The second I heard Nirvana and Temple of the Dog and all that, I was like, you know, time for to change the channel for a while.
By the time the tour ended, the tension had become unbearable. Ratt owed Atlantic Records one more album, but in February of '92, Stephen Pearcy abruptly quit the band.
You know, if you don't like the people you're working with, don't work with them.
I mean, I know why he quit, because, you know, we couldn't stand each other at that point.
Everybody was just fried. I don't know how else to put it. So if one guy can actually say, oh, he had his together, they're full of because everybody was up in one way or another. Whether you're in your happy marriage or on your happy dope, or like me, happy I don't know. Everybody was on their own planet, and there was no coming back.
The timing of that couldn't have been worse, because it triggered, you know, just all kinds of peripheral problems with our contractual agreements, you know, which wasn't really that much further off.
Not only did the band explode and fall apart, but all of a sudden, I go from having a way of making a living to absolutely nothing. It was unbelievable.
Ratt split put the entire band in a financial freefall. But Robin Crosby had already hit bottom.
I got to the point where I had a $500 a day habit.
He called me up one day and needed some money. I'm like, look, I'll give you $100, $200, whatever, just here, you know. He was crying, and he was barefoot, and he had sores on his feet and on his hands and stuff. I felt sorry for him, you know.
It seemed that things could get no worse for Robin, but in the summer of 1994, they did.
So I called him. Hey, what's going on, Robin? How you doing, man? And he goes, well, you know, not too good. And I go, what's wrong? He says, well, I've been diagnosed with HIV. He thinks that maybe what happened was he somehow used a needle that he thought was clean that wasn't.
What I've been through is the worst. The worst. You know, limousines, and then the Plaza Hotel and the Forum and the Madison Square Garden to a little shack in North Hollywood is real hard pill to swallow.
Next, Robin's final days.
He was going to go down in flames. He wasn't going to sit there and fade away. That ain't his style.
When Behind the Music continues. In the late 1980s, as a decade marked by depravity and decadence turned toxic, Ratt fell apart. But by the end of 1996, they were plotting to restart their platinum party. And no one was more eager to rev it back up than HIV-stricken guitarist Robin Crosby.
I understand all of their feelings towards me and my feeling towards them. You know, I f***ed up a good thing.
All Robin wanted to do was redeem himself. He wanted that more than anything in the world.
But one rehearsal was all it took to reveal that Robin was in no shape to handle the rigors of rock and roll.
Cool. I knew right then he couldn't play. I was like, ain't gonna happen. That's being nice.
Next thing I knew, they were in the studio, and that I just wasn't invited to do it, and it was real difficult for me.
The new breed of Ratt was far different than the original, as bassist Juan Crucier wound up joining Robin on the sidelines.
I came to the conclusion that nothing had changed with Stephen. When you show up to a meeting with a six-pack of beer, you're sending the wrong message.
The lineup of Stephen, Warren, Bobby, and new bassist Robbie Crane lasted nearly 4 years before old resentments boiled over. In early 2000, Stephen again bailed on the band, just days before a 40-day tour was set to start.
We realized that, you know, we probably really don't like each other very much.
When Stephen quit for the second time, Warren and I had a talk about getting another singer. Stephen said, go ahead, get another singer, do what you gotta do. I'm done.
That was pretty much the end of that whole Ratt era, so to speak.
'Cause I'm yeah, wanted man.
Bobby and Warren won a court battle in early 2002 to continue touring under the Ratt banner. while Stephen fronted a new band of his own. But as the Ratt ringers hit the road, Robin Crosby lay destitute, fighting for his life.
He felt very betrayed. He was very lonely. He was very hurt. And he was also very upset with the members of Ratt for not trying to help him in some way, shape, or form. And he said to me, you know, Juan, they're out there on the road. They're making money. It's wrong, man. I mean, I'm sitting here broke, dying. And they can't even throw me just something to help?
It's been hard. I thought I had all the friends in the world. That turns out I have a fistful.
His fall had been breathtaking, but in one of the last interviews before his death, Robin seemed at peace with his past.
I mean, I've run the full gamut, you know, done everything I ever dreamed of and more. Don't feel sorry for me. I've lived the life of 10 men. Nobody cry at my funeral. As a matter of fact, let's have a party.
On June 6, 2002, Robin Crosby died at the age of 42. Not from AIDS, but from a lethal injection of heroin.
He was constantly in the mode of, I can do this. I'm gonna make it. That ego, that machismo, the same thing that got him to become a rock star is exactly the same thing that killed him.
He was going to go down in flames. He wasn't going to fade away. That ain't his style.
Robin's death marked a tragic end to an era that reveled in its excess. A time when millions of fans around the world went round and round to the righteous riffs of Ratt.
I remember 18,000 kids singing Round and Round. It was deafening. And I mean, I just sat there with my mouth open, and it was just like, oh my God, you know, we really, rightly or wrongly, we, for one brief moment, touched all these kids.
When they had all the cylinders firing, Ratt was a great American rock band.
Ratt and roll was just a way of life, you know, for us, and it could still be, you know. It's, you know, as they say, cockroaches and rats will be the last things on Earth.